The CDC says no masks if you're vaccinated. The Friends reunion is almost here. And Love Hate 8 to end the week. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Friday, May 14th. I am Jill Wagner here with Carlo Versano. A big happy birthday to my dad, who I don't believe actually listens to the podcast, but my mom does. So she'll tell him I said happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. Wagner. Great news.
Okay, so we've got some good news on this Friday.
We do.
Courtesy of the CDC. Vaccinated Americans no longer have to wear masks or socially distance in most scenarios. That announcement coming from the CDC yesterday, and it is a really stark and sudden revision to its public health guidance. The caveats are as follows. Even if you're vaccinated, you still need to wear a mask inside of hospitals, doctors' offices, and nursing homes, as well as on public transportation and in airports. The agency is deferring to local authorities and businesses on specific mandates and says that it's going to have revised guidance for schools, summer camps, and travel coming up soon. President Biden calling this a, quote, great day for America, and was crediting the vaccination drive for making it possible.
Surprising, huh? I did not see this coming. Did you?
No, I was shocked, actually. I kind of thought, I mean, that came out in the afternoon, which is basically like our late evening. And I'm looking, I thought I needed some sleep.
Yeah, really. Well, this is going to be a free-for-all now, right? All the more reason to get vaccinated if you haven't. The local and business mandates, as you sort of mentioned there, are still going to supersede it. So like if your local CVS tells you have to wear a mask, you still have to wear a mask in there. But I suspect that those sort of mandates are going to quickly fall away now. This is huge.
Cuomo, by the way, has already said, he's already like, well, we need to look at the data ourselves.
Yeah.
Always got to be the contrarian. Governor Cuomo.
He's a control freak, too. I thought this was interesting. The New York Times surveyed a bunch of epidemiologists just like in the last couple of weeks, and only 5% of them said that they thought that we wouldn't be wearing masks inside this summer. So this really is sort of really surprising. But it does jive with what we were talking about yesterday, which is that, you know, they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't believe that we were in the bottom of the ninth here. And, you know, I was just walking around. I did sort of an extended walk around Brooklyn yesterday. You're really starting to get this sense of normalcy here. I know that in other parts of the country, it's been like this for a long time now, but I live here, so this is my experience. You know, people starting to take their masks off, walking down the streets, outside. I noticed a lot of people dressed up, which was just shocking because I feel like I hadn't seen that in a long time. Like women wearing like nice dresses and men wearing suits. A lot of people wearing makeup, trying on all the weird clothes that they bought in quarantine that maybe not such a great idea, but hey, everyone's like pasty as hell from being inside. I feel like nobody really knows how to like act in public, but I love it. It's great, and it's you know, it's a long time coming. We're really it's just really good reasons to feel good today.
SNL did a really funny skit, the one with Elon Musk. I know I wasn't here on Monday,
good.
Where they were just doing like every conversation that you're going to have post quarantine, and just how awkward it is because we just no longer know how to socialize with each other.
Like the guy hitting on his cousin. He's like, wait, am I related to this person?
And he's like, how many times can you say, it's been a crazy year? It's been a crazy year. I do wonder what this means for work, for offices. This is such, I think, a big win. And you and I have talked about this. And just in full disclosure, of course, Cheddar, voluntarily you now could come back to the office. I'm at the office, Carlo is still home. And we've talked about this. And it's one of the issues has been why, for people who could voluntarily come back but still can work from home, why would you come back to the office if you have to wear a mask all day? And you're going to be, you can meet in person with a mask or you can meet over Zoom without a mask, like which is better. I think this is going to be a huge boost for getting people back into offices.
I suspect you're right about that. We're going to have to see in the next couple of weeks.
The CDC, though, making this reversal in response to data which showed that the rate of vaccination in the U.S. is really accelerating the end of the pandemic. So several states now going multiple days with 0 or single-digit COVID fatalities. New case numbers are at 35,000 and falling. Hospitalizations are around 36,000 and falling. Daily deaths are around 600 or so and falling. We haven't seen numbers like that since the first few weeks of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, this is exponential decay, which is what statisticians were saying we're going to start to see, and now we're seeing it, which is fantastic. The Cleveland Clinic this week said that they have preliminary data showing that the vast majority of people who are now getting sick or being hospitalized have not been vaccinated, something like 99.7%. I do want to mention something very weird happening with the New York Yankees. I don't know if you've been following this story.
Yeah,
it's really strange. So there's now 8 confirmed cases of COVID within the New York Yankees organization just this week. I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, so all of those players and staff members got vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, according to the team. So I don't know if it was like a bad batch or if there's some sort of super spreader event of some kind of variant that was able to break through. Really weird. In some ways, it sort of reinforces the efficacy of the vaccines, right? Because just one of those 8 people showed any symptoms at all, and those symptoms were mild. The rest of them were asymptomatic. So just strange story. I don't really know what to make of it. Bill Maher also tested positive despite him being vaccinated. So again, I just mentioned this because these things, the Yankee thing is weird, but putting that aside, these breakthrough cases do happen. None of these vaccines are 100% effective. So none of this is really like unheard of, but the Yankee thing I don't get.
All right, let's look overseas to see what's going on in the Middle East. There were conflicting reports last night that Israel's military had launched a ground offensive into Gaza. So that does not appear to be the case. It may have just been a bad Hebrew to English translation, actually.
Right.
Israel has, though, massed troops at the border while calling up thousands of reservists, suggesting a possible ground invasion against Hamas could be imminent. Israeli artillery has been shelling targets inside of Gaza, and Hamas has continued to fire about 1,800 long-range rockets at targets deep inside of Israel. Another concerning development that happened last night, there were rockets fired from Lebanon. Apparently that is not Hezbollah. That was just from a kind of like a rogue Palestinian group. But that was another big concern last night, was that, wow, I mean, if this then became a war with Lebanon in the north and Hezbollah in the north, and then Hamas in the southwest, and that would just really add a whole layer of complication to it. What were we saying? The city of Lod in central Israel has become a flashpoint for some of the worst civil unrest in years. We were mentioning this yesterday, kind of this civil war as well that's happening with Jews and Arabs fighting each other in the streets, despite a heavy police presence.
So you sent me this podcast from, what was it, the Times of Israel, I want to say? Yeah, right? I thought it was very smart. They did sort of like 16, 17 minutes on the latest yesterday. I was listening to it on my walk. But these guys were making a point about the point that you've sort of been making about sort of this just leadership vacuum, this lack of leadership on the streets, right? And I forget who the reporter was, but she was talking about there's no MLK moment, right? There's no politicians or even really like religious or community leaders that are out there like holding hands with each other in the streets, calling for ceasefire, calling for calm. So I thought that was a really a smart take just about the leadership vacuum on both sides of this mess.
And the other point that podcast made that I thought was interesting is that Israelis in many cases are actually more worried about the civil war or the potential for civil war and this mob violence within its borders, because that is a bigger threat to the fabric of society in Israel. Perhaps cooler heads have prevailed, at least though within Israel. Since that podcast was recorded, Netanyahu visited some of those areas. But again, it still doesn't have a mandate to form a coalition government. He's actually on trial for corruption charges.
Right.
So he's not really a strong leader at this point, and doesn't have the support of everyone there. I have seen video of Arab and Jewish Israelis singing for peace in a northern Israeli town. So hopefully that will have calmed down a bit. A couple of other things I wanted to point out, mostly in response to some really simplified memes and just misinformation that I'm seeing on social media. And if I'm seeing it, I'm just assuming other people have seen it as well. And I think it's fascinating because this is the first time that there's been a real conflict in the Middle East that social media is so prevalent, and these memes and these infographics, and that's how people really get their news. And for a lot of people, this is their first introduction to what's going on in the Middle East. Like, most people who are opining on what's going on probably cannot point out Israel on a map, or know anything really about the past 1,000 years of history. And so just I want to mention, I think you can be pro-Israel and also pro-Palestinian. Okay, you could be a Zionist. That's another term that's out there. That's the belief that the Jewish people should have a state in Israel. But you could be a Zionist and also believe that Palestinians should have their own state. Most Israelis, and I would think most Palestinians, want a two-state solution. And two states, by the way, that's a two-country solution. Like, so if you're not familiar with that term, two-state solution just means a country Israel, a country Palestine. Gaza, by the way, if you want some background on that, that is a tiny, it's 25 miles by 5 miles. It's in the southeast of Israel. The southwest of Israel. This would be part of any future Palestinian state. Israel under Ariel Sharon withdrew from Gaza in 2005. I remember working at NBC News at the time. I was watching that raw video come in of the Israeli military forcibly removing Jewish settlers who had built homes and were living in Gaza. And then a couple years later, so one of the complications here, if Israel was going to then remove settlements or whatever from West Bank, is one of the complications, according to Israel, would be the Palestinians just a couple years after that elected Hamas as their government. As you know, they're a terrorist organization. Their goal is to really destroy Israel. I saw a social media post yesterday. It said, "I pray for peace in Israel and Palestine." And I liked it, and I was reading the comments. The comments were, I thought there was going to be thank you, whatever. The comments were, there is no Israel, death to Israel, a traitor to somebody who posted it, and other just horrific things about Jews. So I don't know. Look, there's so many, if this is all new to you and you're learning about it for the first time, there's tons of resources. If you want to email us, we could point you in the direction. The Daily, the New York Times, The Daily, I thought did a good podcast on this yesterday, 25 minutes just on the conflict. Another meme I saw that I thought was kind of accurate was, if you're learning about this through the same people who brought, the Fire Festival, which are the Hadid sisters, that's probably not the best way to get information. There's a lot of terms being thrown out, like apartheid state, colonizer, all these are so loaded, ethnic cleansing. It's just not what's going on. And you could argue it is, but at least understand the context of this and that this history started a long time ago. And that's it. I mean, I would plead with people before you make up your mind to just do a little research and have some understanding about what's going on.
The only thing, I obviously agree. So I've been accused of bigotry, I think, twice in my life that I can think of. The first time was when we talked about that joke on SNL a couple months ago, and I said that I wasn't adequately offended, I guess.
What was the
joke?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but it was a joke. It was some sort of joke that Michael Che had made about Israel and Palestine. And the second was this week. People, I really think that it's not effective to start throwing around terms like fanning the flames of anti-Semitism or adding to the concerns about anti-Semitism by just saying that that Israel's government just calling into question the power of a foreign government that's backed by the United States. That's all.
Well, look, we live in a free country. Israel, the only real democracy in the region, where Israelis would be critical of their government as well, and many are. And that's one of the reasons that Israel is an ally of ours, because it is. I mean, it's a parliamentary system, but it's a democracy. They have free speech. I've been seeing things about if you care about women's rights and you care about gay rights, hashtag Free Palestine. You cannot be openly gay in Gaza under Hamas. You could be openly gay in Israel. So it's just, let's be clear. Everyone's entitled to an opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And I would just say, Carlo, I respect all of your opinions, and we have a nice relationship where we could talk, and you're allowed to criticize Israel's government. Of course you are, and that does not make you a bigot or an anti-Semite.
No, I don't think. By the way, I'm not referring to you. I'm just saying people who have been like you should see my Twitter DMs. I'll just put it that way. It's just really not. It's just not effective. And like I said, I think what I said after that SNL thing was when everything's anti-Semitic, nothing's anti-Semitic. And we have a real, as you've pointed out many times, we have a real anti-Semitism problem in this country. And that we should focus on that and not people who are just criticizing a foreign government.
Well. The argument, and I read some of the emails, is just that the way that you frame the issue can fan the flames of anti-Semitism, but I don't think we're framing it in a way that would, right? I mean, some media outlets, the way that they portray it, that could shape people's impression of what's going on. But I think that and you made a point to purposely take the AP and their writing and the way that they framed it. Not that the AP doesn't have their own biases, but I think we could leave it there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to back to what's going on here in the U.S. It turns out the Colonial Pipeline did pay the ransom to get its fuel pipeline back up and running. The company handed over $5 million in cryptocurrency to Eastern European hackers hours after they issued their demands, according to reporting from Bloomberg. In exchange, the hackers provided a decryption tool to restore the computer systems. That tool was apparently so slow that Colonial ended up using its own backups to get the pipeline back online. Officials say it's going to take several days for things to get back to normal. Is this the story that just gets weirder every single day?
It's so weird. It's so weird. First of all, $5 million, that's cheap at the cost, really. However, isn't the American policy that we don't negotiate with terrorists? I mean, maybe it's different. Maybe I guess it's different for private companies. I saw $7 gas at someone posted a picture of a $7 gas in Richmond, Virginia. That's price gouging straight up. Like if you see something like that, you report it. That's not okay, right? That has nothing to do with supply and demand. That's straight up price gouging. One of the potentially stupid questions that I have with this is like, why does all of our infrastructure have to be online? I mean, I understand that everything runs on computers now, obviously, duh. But like, why does a crucial gas pipeline have to be connected to the internet? Is that, I don't know, maybe we have some like specialists who know the answer to that question. Because seriously, I mean, these are questions that we're going to have to deal with. These hacks are only going to become more frequent. It's a gas pipeline today, tomorrow it's a dam, next week it's the air traffic control systems, power grids. It's a real issue that's going to confront this country.
To the labor market we go. Amazon hiring 75,000 new employees, and it's going to sweeten the pot with $1,000 signing bonuses for many of them. The company also bumping up its starting hourly wages to $17 an hour from $15 an hour for the new gigs as it competes with other large employers in an extremely competitive market, especially for lower wage workers.
Meanwhile, you see McDonald's raising pay for about 37,000 of their hourly workers, but just at company-owned locations. There's about 14,000 McDonald's in the United States. 95% of them are franchisees. Those are not required to raise the pay. But still, this average increase is going to be about 10%. Starting wages at McDonald's will go up to about $11 to $17 an hour. Managers are going to make a minimum of 15 to 20. This is just following similar pay bumps that we've seen at other fast food and restaurant chains like Chipotle, because that industry really struggling to find workers. Basically, every restaurant in my neighborhood that I've seen, there's a big sign in the window that says "Help Wanted" for every position. This is a tough one, right? Because a lot of folks are framing this as like a bad thing, and I know that if you're an independent small business, like you can't just raise wages like if you're McDonald's, obviously, right? But again, what I said yesterday, I think is really an important point that hasn't been explored enough, which is that there's a lot of leverage on the side of the working class right now. It's really something new that we're not used to seeing, and it could be a good thing. For one of the biggest societal problems that we have, which is income inequality, right?
Hopefully it is, right? And hopefully it is the start of something bigger in terms of a trend. And, a lot of it's all to encourage people to get back to work. Joe Biden's calling people to get back to work as well. And look, you could think that when these extended unemployment benefits run out in a couple of months, perhaps those signing bonuses won't be there, right? So the thinking is get people back. If that's a reason, and again, we're not entirely clear about why there is such a labor shortage right now with so many people unemployed. But all good things and nice to see. Also, we finally have a date for the highly anticipated and long-delayed Friends special or Friends reunion. So Friends, the reunion, will debut on HBO Max on May 27th. All 6 stars of the original show will appear for the reunion, reportedly for a fee of $2.5 million each. And then there's also some special guests. Do you know that this has been, this story in general has been one of my pet peeves of the past year? Because this was supposed to be.
We've been talking about it forever.
Yeah, I mean, this was supposed to be the special that launched HBO Max, and I had made the point for a while, who even cares? Who wants to see a Friends reunion? See, it's basically just the stars of the show talking about the show. I'm not interested, and I was a Friends fan, and I'm not interested.
Really? Yeah. I mean, $2.5 million, I would appear in just about anything you asked me to for that kind of cash. Probably like a day's work, right? They probably go to some studio lot, sit in front of a couple cameras, talk about the good old days. Yeah, probably not even, right? HBO dropped the first teaser trailer. If you want to check that out, it's in the newsletter, although it's not very interesting. It's just sort of like a black background and some nice music. It's like the theme song, whatever.
Exactly. HBO Max should have pulled the plug on this thing. They already launched. They don't need it.
Yeah.
Save the money.
True.
Okay, let's do a little love, hate, 8 to end the week. One thing that we love, hearing the sound of the ice cream truck coming down the street, still gets us, even at our old age.
I'm going to tell my daughter that the ice cream truck song means that the truck is out of ice cream. Smart, right?
You are, or cruel. That's not nice.
Oh, come on. I thought that was clever.
One thing that we hate, when the pollen turns into humidity seemingly overnight. We'd estimate we're about 2 weeks from this date in the Northeast.
Yes, but if you have allergies, they're starting to clear up, I think, a little bit. And it is so green out there right now just in the Northeast. It's amazing. Just take a look around today. Just meditate on it. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. The weather is just perfect, and it won't be that for much longer. So, just be in the moment with it if you can. And finally, one thing that we ate, Trader Joe's, they have this house-made salsa that I have discovered. So Rebecca, one of our producers, says that if you mix it with their guacamole, it's really particularly good. I haven't done that, but the salsa itself from Trader Joe's, and they also have these little tortilla scooper, like tortilla chips that are shaped like little scoops.
I love a tortilla chips shaped like a scoop.
It's just really good salsa. It's not too chunky. I don't like chunky salsa, so it's like a really good mix of chunk and liquid, I guess you'd call it. A little bit spicy. Perfect salsa. I heard somebody at Trader Joe's once when I was waiting in line to get in there, which you have to do here. They referred to it. It's not a grocery store, but a snack store. And I haven't really been able to stop thinking about that, because it's sort of true when you're in there. You're like, this place just sort of sells really good desserts and things to nibble on, but it's not particularly good when it comes to produce or meat or real meals, right?
I saw this really funny picture on social media that I sent to my friend Sydney, who loves samples. It said, "This pandemic isn't over until Costco has free samples again."
Yeah.
And I thought that obviously ties into the pandemic stuff and the lack of mask wearing, but also just food and these little snacks. I kind of agree. That's when I have my coffee cart test for when New York City is going to be back. When I see coffee carts on every corner, that's when I know New York City's back.
Yep. I like that. That's our indicator.
Okay, that's what you need to know for Friday, May 14th.
A great weekend, guys.